everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be embarking on a new project that is actually part of a wonderful Halloween collaboration. So for this project, I'm collaborating with Stephanie Canada, who I am sure you've probably seen on my channel before or you've probably watched her videos, but I will link her down below in the description so that you can go check out her channel and her video on this collaboration. And we are also collaborating with all of you. So I really hope that you all will join us in this fun Halloween project, which is hashtag Grim Grinning Garb. And what we are doing is we are making Haunted Mansion related outfits. So either that is an outfit that's made out of Haunted Mansion fabric. For example, I found my fabric at Joann's earlier this summer, or you could do an outfit that is inspired by like the outfits that the cast members wear at the Haunted Mansion, or even you could just make something spooky in general, or maybe like one of the ghost costumes that you see on the ride. Just anything that is like spooky, Haunted Mansion themed is totally welcome in this collaboration. So this all kind of began when we saw the fabric that was released by Joann's this year. This is mine right here, but there were actually a few different designs. I do believe that at this time most of them are no longer available, but if there are any available, I'll link them down below in the description. And I knew that this would just make a fun dress, and kind of a fun like retro inspired dress was what I was thinking for this project. Also, you know me, you know I love a jumper dress, so I kind of wanted a fall jumper dress because this time of the year, I'm currently making this mid-September. You're watching this the beginning of October, and this time of year in the Pacific Northwest lately has been very much in flux weather-wise. We might have fall weather, 60 some odd degrees, overcast, rainy. We might have 85 degrees. You just never know. And the wonderful thing about a jumper or a pinafore dress is, of course, the versatility, because whatever sleeve you put on underneath it, that is what's suitable for the weather, hopefully. So that is my plan here. And I actually got the idea, the specific idea for this project from a few of you after I made my Mary Ellen strawberry dress that I'm wearing right here. Now, if you saw the videos for this dress, you know that I created my own pattern to try to get a dress pattern shape that would match my American Girl doll. And then after finishing the project, I found out about a pattern that basically already exists for this almost exact dress. And that is McCalls 7354, this one right here. So you'll notice that a lot of those lines are really similar on this pattern versus this dress, except that I added sleeves to mine. So that's my plan. I am going to go ahead and try out this pattern, and I'm going to try to do it, I think, pretty much as published. I know I am going to drop the neckline down because I'm making it a jumper dress, but at this moment, at least, that is the only change that I plan to make besides, of course, general sizing. Because unfortunately, this pattern is not size inclusive. It comes in a small, medium, large, extra large, and the extra large is about half a size, potentially one size smaller than what I need. So my plan for mock-up stage, at least, is just to size it up to what would be an XXL and see how that works and where I might need to take in or let out or whatever from there. I don't even plan to add any additional length to the mock-up, which might be a bad idea, but we'll see how that goes. So I do already have the pattern right here, graciously loaned to me by my friend Emily of the Sucky Seamstress, and let's go ahead and make a mock-up. I will say straight off the bat, there are a few differences in this paper pattern. For one, if you remember my dress from before, I had one really large circle skirt type skirt. This has two different pattern pieces for the skirt itself. This one right here is the skirt front pattern piece, and this is meant to be cut with just one of them, but on the fold. So you do get a fold in the center front, which is great. That's what I would think would be ideal, not what I wound up with my Mary Ellen dress. Then we have a back piece over here where we are cutting two of them, and this line right here, this is actually the center back. So I'm intrigued to see how this sort of overlap works, because this is the side I believe that attaches to the front, and then this is the side that doesn't. So I'm slightly concerned that there's a lot less overlap in the skirt than what I have on Mary Ellen, because it would just be this times 2, I think, would be the overlap. So I really like on the Mary Ellen dress how much overlap there is in the back. So yeah, I'm intrigued about that. And then when we talk about the bodice piece, an interesting thing on here, and I'm not sure why they did it, but on Mary Ellen, it is one full piece that goes around to the tab from the back. This is the back piece that we're looking at right here. But on this dress, we actually have a separate tab piece right here that gets attached onto the end there. Also, I'm not sure how that works because this is definitely a different width. Huh. That is confusing. Okay, I'm gonna have to look at the instructions and see. Oh, I guess it's because this is the part that doesn't attach to the skirt. So they've included seam allowance here to attach to the skirt, and then that's why probably they've done a separate tab piece so we don't have that notch going on right there like I had. So it's just that this is the side that's free and it gets bound, which also feels a little narrow, but who knows. And then this is the side that gets attached to the skirt. So I guess I see why they did that. That might make things a little clearer. I'm also wondering just how kind of low in the back this is. It looks a little lower. I should probably find where I put my pattern that I made up for mine and compare and see what the difference is. So I'm officially alarmed at just how different these are. Yeah, that's really, really different, including the grain line is actually different, because if you remember from the other video, I first did my grain line so that the grain was basically up and down like any normal bodice, and then I switched it because I was getting a lot of bagging out on this angle. So I switched it so that this was actually the grain line and this was then on the bias. That is not how this pattern is. You can see the grain line right there. The other thing we're looking at is an incredibly wide shoulder because it is a big 3 pattern, and big 3 patterns always have incredibly wide shoulders, and I have very narrow shoulders. And then we also have a short side, which I do sometimes or often lengthen patterns. So yeah, we have a short side and yet we have a long shoulder. So that is very odd to me. We are also missing the dart entirely. So this pattern that I started with did have a small, just a narrow dart in the back. You can see the little point of it right there, which obviously we don't have here. However, this does taper in at the side. So maybe that alleviates the need for the dart. And then that was kind of my worry before of just how steeply sloped it's going to be in the back to potentially give us a very, very deep V where it meets, because this is the center back line. I mean, I know it's not significantly lower than mine, it's about an inch, but even an inch does make a difference. Keep in mind that with this pattern, at least, I mean, I haven't read the instructions yet, but it should be with this pattern that when we're looking at edges like this is all stuff that's going to be bound in double fold bias tape. So there is no seam allowance that is removed on these sorts of edges. But yeah, it's really, really different. I don't think I went on my pattern and removed the excess tab because I did wind up with too much here and I had to cut it away in my final. So I think that the tab length is actually kind of similar because this has not been extended yet to the next size up, but it's very different in this slope. So yeah, I'm definitely concerned about that, and also the width itself. I mean, this is how wide mine was, which is like 1.5 times the size of this, if not more than that. So yeah, I'm gonna do the mock-up of literally just this, extending it up to the next size, but I have a lot of concerns. I just measured this section right here, and apparently I did actually cut this down, so I probably will wind up with the tab being too short on the one that I'm about to mock up as well. And of course, the differences do not stop with just the back. Our front is also very, very different here. I thought maybe I was going to be able to not lengthen the front for the mock-up, but I think I am actually going to have to, because this is just barely long enough for me, and I can already tell that it's longer than what we have right here. So yeah, I'm just going to wind up lengthening probably the strap, because I think we're kind of similar-ish. One of the big differences differences here, which I'm actually looking forward to, is that I had my bust dart, the higher one, going this way, and this one has it going this way. And I have had patterns going this way before, and it's worked really, really well. My blue plaid jumper dress is an example. So I am intrigued and hopeful about this dart, since I had so many issues with the darts on Mary Ellen. And then again, I am going to drop this neckline down because I know that I want mine lower than the Mary Ellen dress because it's going to be a jumper dress. So probably going to knock it down to about here and then extend up the shoulder to here. I am so tempted to start from the get-go by narrowing these shoulders, but I don't know. We'll see what I actually decide to do. So I've decided that for the back piece, because I was really nervous about just how low this back was, that I'm actually going to cut a line a little bit higher. So this is the line right here. The solid line is where it should go to just be an XXL, but this would be like that 1 inch higher line from there, from the XL line. So I'm just going to kind of cut it there, and that way I can cut away if that's too much, but you can also see where I have sized up otherwise. So those are all of my cut lines. Okay, I'm finding this very interesting, having just done basically this pattern, but obviously not this pattern. I am seeing issues in this that I kind of knew would arise. For example, the biggest issue that I'm finding right now is the crossover back. Look at what is super baggy. Oh, I wonder why it's super baggy. Oh, that's right. It's on the bias. Deja vu, right? We've been here before. So I'm really curious, honestly, because if you all remember in the Mary Ellen video, which, like, if you have not watched that first Mary Ellen video where I was figuring out all the patterning, definitely go check that out. Maybe before even finishing this video. It will be linked down below, and I'll also put it right up here. But if you remember from that Mary Ellen video, when I first made this on the grain, aka the diagonal was on the bias, it was an issue. It was baggy just like this. And then I went and looked at the simplicity pattern that I had access to at that time, which I thought was the closest commercial pattern available to something of that style. And the simplicity pattern had flipped the pattern piece so that the bias was around as opposed to the diagonal back, and putting it on the bias that way, switching the piece and cutting it on the bias, fixed the baggy back issue. So what I'm super curious about now is, like, with the original pattern, because this is a repro pattern from 1955, I'm really curious if the original was actually switched so that it was bias across and straight grain going on the diagonal. It seems odd to me that they would actually switch the entire, like, direction of a pattern piece, but that's all I can really figure as to why this issue is happening, because it shouldn't be happening. The other big issue that I'm sure you can notice, I mean, besides the fact that the shoulders are immensely wide on me, is the fact that the arm size are also immensely wide on, or immensely huge on me. Now, this is going to be a jumper dress, so that's not the biggest deal in the world, but also the bodice itself right here under the arms feels very big here, so I almost wonder if, like, by taking that in a little, will that help, or will it be combated, canceled out by the fact that I need to cut away so much of this arm side. My shoulder, the shoulder seam should be like here, so that's how wide these are on me. So yeah, lots of things to fix on this as it goes and, like, falls off my shoulder again. Lots and lots of things to fix. On the one hand, the darts look really nice. So yeah, I think that I am going to actually have to cut this on the bias in the back to fix the baggy back problem. But now it's just dawning on me that I have a directional print fabric. So that might make things look very strange, but here we are. So I'm realizing that there may actually be one other fix that I could do that maybe would fix a whole myriad of problems. I don't know if it would fix the back, but I think it might fix the others. And that is, I didn't even realize when I was looking in the monitor here that actually these sleeves, straps, etc. are too long in the shoulder. And I was a little worried because I do feel like this is a little on the short side, like short-waisted for me right here, but adding a little bit more length to the waist in the actual is easier than fixing a lot of other difficulties, a lot of other issues. And so if I actually take up the shoulder here, you'll notice that it is sitting better on my shoulder. It's not nearly as wide as I thought it was. It's still very wide, like it needs to be cut there, but it's not nearly as wide. The gapping that's happening, or that was happening down here, is significantly lessened. It is still a little bit too big around, but again, I think that would actually help the arm's eye. And even that is tightened a little bit on this side. You'll notice I haven't done anything to the other side. So I think I'm actually going to go ahead and try taking up the shoulders before doing any other changes, and see if that might even fix the back diagonal as well. And I'll put it back on, and I'll also cut off the extra in the shoulders though, just to see about that arm's eye, but we'll see what all that fixes. So I want to show you guys something interesting here. I was just taking up the shoulders, and then it didn't meet because, you know, they're different sizes. So I was about to go cut off just kind of this excess to see where I needed to taper it off to. So I'm laying this out right here. This is the bias, the piece that crosses in the back, and I've matched up my shoulder seams over here, and I went to go match up this seam over here. Yeah, no, it doesn't. It's already stretched about 3/4 of an inch on one side as opposed to on the other side, because this is on the bias and bias stretches. So obviously one of the sides, as I was putting it on, stretched more than the other, and that was probably why it is baggy. But of course, there is no way to prevent this from happening or continuing to happen even as I try on the mock-up. So although I did just make all of these other sorts of changes, I'm not even sure it's worth trying on this mock-up a second time, because obviously they're not even and one is just going to keep stretching out. So that is a little annoying. I might try it on anyway just to show you, but yeah, I don't think that is going to work out to keep these this grain. So I have it back on. It is still too wide in the shoulders, so I do still have to take a little bit more of that away as well, because frankly, I think we need to be going no further out than about this with the shoulder, but I had forgotten to mark it when I had it on before, and so I took about an inch and a quarter, I'd say, off before, but it needs to come really, really significantly off. So we're gonna do that. But also the back drape is still, well, the back cross is still a drape. So it does not work to go the direction that this pattern says you should do. If you are going to make this pattern, flip that back piece so that the cross part, the diagonal part, is on the straight of grain. That, no question, like that, you need to do that. I don't know why McCalls changed it from what it probably originally was, because it does not work. Unless, of course, you want a drapey back, in which case, go for it. But yeah, it does not work. So the other thing is that it is definitely, now that I've taken up the shoulders, it is definitely at least a ½ inch too short. I think I'm getting just about to my natural waist here, but it doesn't have room for seam allowance. So I will have to add that back in. Now, all of that said, once I fix the shoulder width problem, I think that I actually feel confident enough to cut this out of the actual fabric. So yeah, I will probably do that once I get the shoulders to as narrow as they should be on me. So of course now I'm doubting everything, because I feel like I maybe cut this like a little bit too far in. I don't know, I feel like I should have left a little bit, but also in cutting it, I am now getting this lovely looseness that doesn't fit, thereby making me want to put a dart in here. What is with darts lately for me? It's really frustrating. I already have the dart down here that is also, like, now that I've cut it away, I feel like this dart is making a weird point that is almost making this dart want to happen. I can't alter this dart though, because it goes into the seam. So like, without taking the seam apart, I can't alter the dart. Now, a lot of you were saying on the Mary Ellen dress that the reason that I was having so many dart issues is literally just because it is a wrap dress, and wrap dresses don't fit right, period. And I was getting that comment from like a good handful of you, So I don't know if that's just what I'm finding right now as well, that I should stop expecting wrap dresses to actually fit properly. I have no other experience with wrap dresses besides these two and making the original Butterick walkway dress, which was like a whole other issue there. But yeah, this is really frustrating and confusing. So I have taken my pieces apart to go and cut mock-up number 2, and I have to admit I'm super tempted to just use my strawberry dress at this point, because right here you're looking at the strawberry dress pattern on top with the new one from the McCalls pattern on the bottom. Now obviously we do have a big difference of where the dart is, because McCalls is here and the strawberry one is here, and both of them had dart issues, so I mean that is something, you know, to be considered. But we're also looking at just like a difference of, like, for example, and I know because of the dart this is going to look weird, but I want to raise the arm's eye up on this one just a little bit, and I want to increase the length of this bit because remember this is getting taken up by the dart, and so it wound up getting a lot shorter. So this actually needs to be lengthened by about 1.25 inches here to equate probably to about where that is my guess. And then I'm increasing the front length here by 1 inch because it's just a little too short, which is where that is. And then obviously the neckline is cut down a little lower on the new one, which is good. The straps are honestly very, very similar. Like this portion right here, very similar, but it's just really tempting to use this one instead of try for mock-up number 2 on this one, even though that's kind of the whole point of this video. And just so you can see it, this is the difference of what those back pieces look like. I didn't really line this one up exactly because there's honestly a lot of differences here, so it's close, but it is not exact. But yeah, it's pretty different how these backs are, but definitely having this on the straight of grain, I think it's super, super important for this outfit. So do not listen to this McCalls pattern. In fact, frankly, you guys, don't get the McCalls pattern. It's not worth it. So yeah, I know that the point of this video was to do this with the McCalls pattern, was to make this Haunted Mansion jumper dress with the McCalls pattern. However, I think I can firmly say at this point, don't buy this pattern. Don't do it. I will attempt, I know I keep saying this, but I will attempt to learn patterning, to learn how to digitize my patterns, because the pattern that I came up with for the Mary Ellen dress is like so much better than this McCalls pattern. Now that said, I am still tempted to try the skirt, because one of the things that I did not like about my Mary Ellen one was that I wound up with the seam center front. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out the pattern pieces from the McCalls skirt here. I already know that I'm going to increase the length of them by 2 inches, and then I obviously need to size them up to the next size as well. But I think I'm going to go ahead and lay out the pattern pieces and just look at what they equate to, because on the pattern envelope, the skirt does not look very full. And I obviously want my skirt full. Like, that's kind of, you know, the point of 50 skirts to me. So I don't know yet whether I am going to go with the McCalls one or not, but I'd like to kind of give it a try without actually cutting out the fabric. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to use my Mary Ellen bodice pattern pieces. We're going to forget the McCalls one even exists at this point. And I'm going to lay out the McCalls skirt pieces. We'll take a look at what those look like, and then I'll make my decision from there which skirt I'm going to use. Okay, so the skirts on this are like really, really slim. Don't mind my dog's headless dog toy over here, but this right here, that is the center front. That's meant to be done on the fold. And then 2 of these are cut out for like the sides, back, etc. And that's it, which means that this entire skirt is less than a half circle. So keep that in mind, less than a half circle. No, I'm making this a circle skirt. My Mary Ellen dress is technically more than a circle skirt because of the overlap. Because remember, we're losing this whole section right here. That all overlaps with each other. So like this skirt is super slim. Like what the heck? Yeah, there's no way. So don't get this pattern. Just don't. Of course, there is actually one issue with me doing this as a circle skirt. This is a directional pattern. So I think I might do this as like a circle skirt, but in multiple panels so that I can all get them going relatively the right direction. Okay, so here is the dilemma. With not making this a circle skirt, it actually wastes a lot more fabric. This is why when you look at a pattern envelope and it tells you like if you're using a directional fabric, you need more of it. That's what I'm running into right here. So if I want to keep everyone relatively upright instead of like completely on their sides, etc., as would happen with a circle skirt, I am not going to be able to make this nearly as voluminously wide around the bottom as a circle skirt. I have done the math. I have 179 inches of this fabric because a little bit of it shrunk in the wash. I think I bought 5 yards. Why I only bought 5 yards? Don't ask me, because my normal fabric yardage that I will buy for like a modern dress is 6 to 6.5 yards. So I have no idea why I bought less of it this time, but it's definitely coming to bite me because this is directional fabric. So I didn't actually do the math to see if I could even do a circle skirt out of that, but I'm fairly certain that I can. I believe, generally speaking, when we're looking at a circle skirt on a 45-inch wide fabric, I feel like I usually wind up using about 3.5 to 4 yards of that. And then of course we need the bodice allowance in there as well. And ideally we need something for the pockets too, but we can hopefully get those out of smaller pieces depending on if I use like the McCalls actual pattern pieces, which are decently smallish versions of 50s pockets. But the math that I did was to do like directional, gores basically, to do things like this. So these are the measurements that I have from the Mary Ellen skirt. These are the backside pieces. This is the front piece, how wide it is at the waist because of that huge overlap. Remember, the back pieces almost entirely overlap on the Mary Ellen dress. I suppose I don't have to do that much of an overlap, but I want something close to that. And so then I went, and the Mary Ellen dress is 31.5 inches wide. I went and did stupid math instead of just measuring the Mary Ellen dress. The Mary Ellen dress circumference of the bottom of the skirt is 262.5 inches. It's very, very big because remember, we're taking a circle that is the inner circle. We're taking a circle that is much, much wider than my waist to begin with. And so therefore the bottom of the circle is also very, very wide because this is more than a circle because the back pieces are overlapped. However, again, I don't have the yardage for that kind of thing. I don't even know if I would have the circle skirt yardage for that sort of an overlap because that 3.5 to 4 yards that I mentioned, that is the regular type of circle skirt, not a circle skirt where you're overlapping like at least a quarter, if not a third, I think, of the whole skirt. So doing the math on this, the fabric is 44 inches wide, which means that once you take the seam allowance out of that, we're talking about 43 inches wide. So when we're looking at the circle width that I can get per panel, we're looking at 43 inches. Now, I have enough fabric that comfortably, like if I cut the bodice pieces out separately, and then I go to do the skirt panels, I can get 4 repeats, 4 panels out of this. Really it's 4.4, but that 0.4 does nothing for me. And so 4 panels would equal about 172 inches of a circle. That is 90 inches less around than the overlapping circle skirt that Mary Ellen has. If I were to maybe try and like squidge things around, potentially having to piece the bodice, which I do not want to have to do because it'd be pretty obvious, it's possible that maybe I could get 5 panels for the skirt. But even with 5 panels, we are looking at 215 inches, I believe, of a total skirt circumference at the hem, which is again still almost 50 inches shy of what I had with Mary Ellen. Now, I don't have to make this quite as crazy as Mary Ellen. And of course, now that I've completely folded up those other pattern pieces, it makes me curious of what that skirt hem circumference was. highly doubt that the pattern envelope will tell me, but let's see. Yeah, no, it does not, because they could never be useful in that sort of way. And I don't really feel like unfolding them just to see, because I just don't think that using the pieces that came in the envelope, I think we are basically completely disregarding the McCalls pattern for this project. So you see my dilemma. So that means that at this point I have to decide, do I want to try and scrimp bodice pieces all together to see if maybe I can get that 5th panel out of this? Do I want to just go with the 4 panels? Now, the one thing about it being 4 panels is that most likely, I don't want to say for certain, but most likely I feel like I'm going to wind up with a seam in the center front if I do 4, whereas 5, I could have that center panel and then 2 panels over here, and that would better distribute things so that I don't wind up with a center front seam. But 5 panels of this leaves very little room on edges to cut bodice pieces out of, which, you know, makes me a little bit nervous. I think I'm gonna do the math for 5 panels to see like how wide do each of the panels need to be at the top if I go for 5 panels, because then I will know how much fabric I have here. Like if this is the fold, how much fabric I have. Here's the top of the skirt panel, the diagonal side of the skirt panel, how much fabric is left over here, because if there's enough, then maybe I can do that. But I do also want to, or need to, cut the bodice front on the fold and the bodice backs on the bias. Yeah, this is where I really, really wish that I had bought more fabric, because this fabric is sold out. Ooh, this directional print thing is really, really tormenting me here, because basically I have it laid out here where the bodice piece is here, the front bodice piece is here. So obviously that's continuous, it's on the fold, etc. And it's starting at the top. Up there, I can probably get pockets out of that section right there, so that will be good, but there's other places I could get that as well. And then over here, we have the bodice back that is on the bias, so that this bit right here is the direction of the fabric. Honestly, I don't know if that's good or not, but I feel like it is probably the best way that it fits. And I will probably wind up doing with the McCalls pattern where it has the tab cut like in a separate thing, because that way I could actually go and cut just this tab part on the grain going across the fabric. Heck, I could cut that from out of up there. But yeah, that way I can get everyone to be standing upright with the print of the pattern right in the front. So I think that would be a really, really good idea. And then we'll just have a little seam there. And that way I don't have to worry about the fact that this is actually running off of the fabric right now because it bows out. Then what we're looking at over here is I basically need 7 inches across the top of each of the panels if there are 5 panels, and I need 7 inches for then the skirt to flare out from there. So like this is where that top panel would be able to start, the first of the 5, and this area right here though is 31.5 inches, and then taking that out of 179, it means that my math, I have 147.5 inches, which means that each skirt can only be 29.5 inches long. That includes a seam allowance, so therefore 29 inches, because luckily at least we don't have the hem in here. However, 29 inches is honestly a lot shorter than what I like. I wanted these to be 31.5 inches long. I just don't think I like a 29-inch skirt. But if I don't do a 29-inch skirt, then I can only have 4 panels of a skirt. Oh my god, you guys, this is so frustrating. Okay, so I have an idea, and I don't really know if it will work. I think it will, but I won't know until I actually put everything together if this idea will work. But my idea is that when we overlap the skirts, I like half-heartedly put this on, when we overlap the skirts here, we have a really good chunk of the underskirt that is covered by the other skirt, the one that flaps over on top of it. And in particular, even if this were to like flip open, etc., a fair amount, I feel like in particular, the part that is like here on the under part of the skirt probably is very unlikely to ever show. you can probably guess at what I'm getting at. But I think that what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to cut my 5 panels, because even at 5 panels, the full circumference is actually less than even just what a normal circle skirt would be on me at the bottom. I'm going to cut my 5 panels, but one of the panels is not going to be the length that it needs to be. It's not going to be 32 inches long. And instead of taking that length away at the bottom of the panel, like instead of running out that way, I'm going to remove that length from the top. And in some of my other cut off random pieces here, I am going to piece in the top section of that panel that gets overlapped. So I don't know exactly how long it will wind up being that winds up being overlapped. Honestly, it might even be like 10 inches long, I think. But I'm going to piece that in with like what will probably be upside down Haunted Mansion fabric. And I think that that should allow me to get the maximum amount of circumference at the hem with the 5 panels, in other words, still have them be the length that I want, and then not have to piece anything besides that little tab bit, which I want to piece, on the bodices. I really hope that this plan works out, because if it doesn't, then obviously I will have made myself a 4-panel skirt that is not wide enough at the waist, because I'm cutting them all to fit for 5 panels. So I would wind up being like 12 inches short. So I hope this plan works out, because otherwise if it doesn't, I guess I don't have a Haunted Mansion dress, or I have a really weirdly pieced Haunted Mansion dress. So keep your fingers crossed for me, and I'm gonna start cutting. Well, crap. I screwed up. So you remember how I worked out that like about 7 inches across is like here or something like that. So this would work for, you know, the top of a panel. I could start a panel right here of the skirt, and it would go along and it would follow this diagonal angle. Yeah, well, I did not factor in the fact that if I were to cut off and make the top of the skirt out of a different fabric, I would then be having to put the bottom of a skirt panel next to that angle section going on there. The bottom of a skirt doesn't fit in this space. So yeah, I super screwed up, and now I'm not sure what to do. Okay, I think I actually worked it out. So instead of cutting the next skirt panel with the bottom starting like right here and then going up, I am actually going to stop. I've already cut 4 of the skirt panels, and here is the back panel right here. I've drawn on my line for where this is going to be like the different section, and then this is the back that's going to be on the bias. So hopefully that won't affect stuff much by having just this little bit of curve not on the bias. I think it will be fine, honestly. And then I'll add the seam allowance right in there. But this is basically just fitting into most of like the wedge that I'm not using for the skirt. And then here, I don't know if you can tell, but this is a different skirt piece. So this is one of the ones I already cut out, and I've been using each one as the pattern for like the next one. So here we go. This is the bottom of the skirt, and it can go to, yeah, here. And so I've got like the bottom 15 or so inches of the skirt that can be cut across. And then the top of it here, this is what's going to hopefully hide under the other skirt panel. And this is going to get cut in probably 2 upside down sections of like the area out here. I don't even know why this is on here. We're not using that, but it's going to get cut there. So yeah, hopefully that will work and no one will be any the wiser when seeing me in public. Obviously you guys all know that the top of the underneath skirt panel is going to be cut in 2 pieces upside down, but yeah, I don't think it will show. Fingers crossed. I did it! I have all of the pieces cut out now except for the pockets, and I still have one of those large wedges that's upside down left. And because the pockets are small, it doesn't matter that it's upside down or anything because I can just flip them over. So yeah, now I have to serge around the outsides of all of the pieces. Oh, I do also want to cut out lining pieces for the bodice. So I guess I still have to do that, but that's, you know, just random cotton that I have. And then these ones will get pieced together right here. And then I can start actually assembling everything. All right, the bodice is assembled with the vertical laid out piece here, and then the bias backs, as you can see here, and then the regular bodice front. I didn't have too much tweaking to do to that, though I did actually need to do a little bit of extra tweaking to the darts because, as you know from the Mary Ellen dress, they did not fit right on that dress, and they were quite a struggle on that. So luckily it didn't take me too long. I had put the same darts that I initially did on Mary Ellen, even knowing that those were going to be wrong, put it on, tried it on, saw that they were a little off, and made them better. This one's still like, there's something pointy going on with it, but this one I'm actually really happy with. I think it looks really good. And honestly, this is a lot better than it was before, so I think I'm just gonna probably stick with it. Plus, I know that putting the skirt on is going to change things at least a little bit. So that is now the next step. Now that this is all done, we can go ahead and put the skirt pieces on. They are also assembled. I don't think I showed them to you, and right now they are wrapped around my dress form right over here, so I can't actually grab them off with one hand, but it's time to go ahead and put those on, put this together, and then we can do just the little bits of finishing like all of that 6 packages worth of double fold bias tape. Somewhere along the line, I have mathed wrong. I'm not exactly sure where, and it's not a huge amount, but this is the bodice part and this is the skirt part, and I am putting them together. They are pinned at the center fronts over here. I'm putting them together, and it should stop, the edge of the skirt should stop where the seam is that I've joined in that little front piece. It doesn't. This is the seam. This is the end. So we're about like 3 inches off. So I think what I'm just going to do is I'm going to run a gathering stitch along the top of the skirt, and I will just ease that in to get that 3 inches out of there. Okay, we're going to do this mirror style over here, so please ignore the mess and say hi to Lion. But I have it obviously all connected now. I know it's black on black and like patterned, so I don't even feel like right now without the trim everywhere that you can even see, you know, where the waist bits are, but everything seems to be doing pretty well. I didn't show you, but I did actually cut the neckline down just a little bit lower, and I also cut the arm size out a little bit because I realized that I had sleeves on Mary Ellen, and so seam allowance is going to go away. This did not have anything they were going into, so I need to take that seam allowance off. So I did take that off. The hem, which is why we're doing this in the mirror, is very uneven. Every time that we get to an area where there is a seam, it is dipping down. So I'm going to have to attempt to stick this on the dress form and try and even that out. I think you can see like how low that is right there, and like back here too. It's very obvious to me in the mirror. I don't know how obvious it is to you on the camera, but yeah, so I'm gonna have to even that out. But the next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to add the double fold bias tape all around the neckline, arm size, tabs, etc. And then I will do the hem bias. So all of the trim is now on, which means that we need to talk about pockets and buttons. So I was tempted to do turquoise buttons to match the turquoise on here. I don't have any that are turquoise though, so I'd have to paint some, and I'm worried that they're just gonna look like eyes if they're turquoise. I do, however, have these vintage black buttons that I thought were pretty cool, and I think they look pretty good right there. So I'm kind of tempted to do the black buttons, at least for now, and then, I don't know, maybe if I stumble across turquoise buttons at some point, maybe I'll replace them, or if I stumble across something that is like appropriately spooky, I might replace them with those. But these are what I have in hand, and I had the 2 matched ones, and I thought that they were perfect size. So yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. This is going to have hooks and bars underneath to actually hold these in place. These are just going to be decorative, but I think I like the look of those. And then for pockets, this is the McCalls pocket pattern. I don't love it though, but it's kind of acting as like a visual placement of trying to figure out where exactly to put the pockets. I do think that unlike the Mary Ellen dress, which has the edges of the pocket go all the way down to the hem of the skirt and then not have the bottom of the pocket outlined, I do think I'm going to do a full like patch pocket outline with the bias tape. But yeah, again, I'm not loving this shape. For one thing, I want squared off edges instead of rounded edges like this one has. And for 2, I just don't know that I love that it's smaller at the top than at the bottom. So I think I'm actually going to probably widen the top just a little bit, but I think the placement's going to be like approximately here-ish. Again, you don't want your fingertips to not be able to reach the bottom of the pocket, so I want them to like just reach, I think. So probably like about there. Maybe I'll extend it up a little higher too, because I just feel like this one is a little bit small for as much real estate as I have on the dress. But yeah, this is the shape of the skirt. I feel like you couldn't really tell what it looked like too much before, but it does still have good spin. Obviously not as much as a full circle skirt, but I think that the flare is there. So yeah, I'm just going to tweak this pocket pattern just a little bit, and we'll have pockets that are approximately here, just like a little bit below where the bands from the waist tabs are. I have to admit though, I almost do wish that I had done inseam pockets in this skirt, because I kind of really like the lines of it right now. And obviously a bias outlined pocket is going to disrupt those lines. I'm also a little bit concerned about the fact that this right here is one of the seams. And so the skirt has quite a bit of flare from that point, and the pocket goes over it. So I'm a little bit concerned about like how that pocket is going to hang, because there's just a lot of like kind of rippling of fabric right there. So yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about that. I mean, obviously it worked for Mary Ellen, but that was a circle skirt, so slightly different. So I guess we'll have to see how this goes, because at this point I'd have to like take a whole lot apart to do inseam pockets. I'm not sure that I want to do that. So I'm actually not going to be able to do Mary Ellen size pockets, because as you can see, my piece of fabric isn't big enough. It's going to be just big enough to do a pocket that's this wide at the bottom, I think, but not if I extend it up at the top. I can make it wider at the top, but not longer. So yeah, that's about the pocket size, I guess. So luckily I had my Patreon chat today. We do a once a month live chat just with any of my Patreon members at the Romantic, Victorian, and Edwardian level tiers. And so I was able to get a little bit of feedback on the pocket situation. And we all kind of agreed that it just looked like when I was adding in patch pockets, it was breaking up the look of the dress. So I actually opened up those two centermost front seams and I put in inseam pockets in both of those. So I just did it the regular way that you put in inseam pockets. I've shown that a lot before on this channel, especially with skirt making. So please refer to almost any of my other videos for how to do that. But yeah, I went ahead and I put those in and it's now a nice smooth line. So that means the dress is done. Let's go take a look at the final look of the dress. So I am honestly really happy with how this turned out, which is good because for a while there I was really worried about how this was gonna look and if it was something that I was actually ever gonna wear or anything. But I feel like somehow adding the turquoise binding just like popped it, and all of a sudden it's become something that I really love. And that's what's interesting about this sort of pattern, whether it is the McCalls awful pattern or like the one that I invented for Mary Ellen. I feel like it's a very meh, unflattering, ugly kind of look, and then you put on the bias pop trim and it changes the entire look of the whole garment. And so yeah, I really am quite happy with this. I don't know, like, unless someone's pretty up close, I honestly don't think that it necessarily reads as Haunted Mansion. So who knows, maybe I will just wear this like all year instead of just for spooky season. But I am very pleased to have this as my new like modern, comfy wear, vintage inspired, etc. daily wear Halloween dress for this year. So that is going to be it for this video, but I want to know if you are going to be participating in the Grim Grinning Garb Halloween collaboration. Definitely make sure you go over to Stephanie Canada's channel and check out her video. I believe this video is coming out a couple of days before hers. I'm not positive, but as soon as hers is out, I will link it down in the description and add a little link right up here so that you can go check hers out as well. But yeah, if you are going to be making something for this collaboration, whether it's Haunted Mansion fabric, a Haunted Mansion type costume, or whether it is just something spooky, please do let me know. Tag me in your posts on Instagram or tag me on YouTube if you're doing a YouTube video about it too, because I would love to see your projects, and I will try to share any of them that like you tag me in publicly on Instagram and stuff. I'll try to be able to share those in my stories as long as you have those as something that can be shared. But I think that this is going to be a really fun community collaboration, and I'm excited to share all of your projects, and so hopefully you guys will join in too. You can do this, of course, anytime this month, and even if it's down the road, even if you're watching this in future years, let me know, because I would love to see that as well. But yeah, that is it for this extremely long video. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you like this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays, and sometimes additional costuming or sewing related content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Jean and Janelle. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing and happy Halloween!